Hey, good morning, Futurist Jim Carroll. If you've been following me, you know my word for 2021 is reinvention, because I think that's what we're all focused on through the coming year. We were certainly doing that last year, and as this strange new world continues to unfold, we're all having to reinvent ourselves for a new reality. Now, you know I've been spending a tremendous amount of time down here in the virtual broadcast studio, doing everything I can to reinvent myself for the fact that a lot of leadership insight and content is going to be delivered via a virtual format. So I'm maximizing what I can do down here to accomplish that. And that's why I'm launching this video series in the coming weeks around the theme of reinvention. And I'm really excited to start out today with an interview with Tom Morley, a rock star, about how he has reinvented to align to this virtual world. Because look, this aligns to my reality. When I was in high school, I think I was a bit of a rebel, and I was actually the general manager for our high school radio station, and I was living the life. It was a tremendous amount of fun. It was the era of Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, disco was blasting around, and I took great pride in sending down the full Led Zeppelin physical graffiti album down to where the jocks were hanging out because they hated it. Life was a lot of fun back then. I played a mean air guitar. Absolutely no musical talent whatsoever. But for my very first interview, I'm interviewing Tom Morley. He's a drummer, was a drummer with the band Scritti Politti in the 80s. And I'm going to talk to him about the whole process of reinvention and what it means to align yourself for a new reality. Let's go. I hope you enjoy this. Hi, I'm Futurist Jim Carroll, and for over 25 years I've been speaking to organizations around the world about what happens in a world in which change is coming at us at a relentless speed. I've spoken on stages all over the world to some of the leading organizations about innovation, change, disruption, trends, and everything that is going on. And now in the era of COVID-19, I'm focusing on this new series, which I've titled Reinvention, realigning ourselves to our new reality, because the impact of COVID-19 and the global pandemic is real. Everything has changed. Our universe has fundamentally shifted. And what is going on is people are working to discover new opportunities, new pathways to follow, new forms of innovation. Everyone is busy reinventing. Part of what I would talk about on stage in previous years was the issue of teamwork. How can an organization work together better in terms of collaborative ideas to deal with the massive rates of change? And some of the world's leading organizations, Disney, NASA, had me in for events which focused on this theme. A very good example of what organizations were looking for involved Godiva chocolates, McVitie biscuits, and a Turkish organization, Ulker. They brought me in for a global conference which was focused around the issue of momentum and specifically focused on the idea of collaboration. What they wanted to concentrate on was how could we develop a team in which we could share ideas across the organization in order to align to the reality of fast consumer change, very disruptive retail change, change occurring with attention spans of consumers. How can we share ideas and accelerate our capabilities? That's but one example of the type of situation where an organization has brought me in, what they've been focused on when it comes to teamwork. Specialized skills. How do we form fast teams? How do we bring in skills from around the organization to deal with the reality of incessant, relentless change? How do we accelerate our ideas? How do we bring this team together to get ideas faster so that we can deal with the reality of what is going on? And over the years, I've had a lot of situations where I've captured the idea of teamwork in the daily inspirational quote, which I put out to my social media followers. If you have an idea and I have an idea, we have two ideas. But if we share those ideas, we have a movement. There is something powerful in the concept of collaborative ideas. Collaboration is the engine of innovation. Connectivity is the pathway to creativity. To really accelerate your creative engine, focus on growing your diversity of ideas. And this is absolutely critical, because what I've learned over 25 years is a lot of organizations will get stuck in a rut. Everybody will begin to think in the same way. What we really need to do is we need to encourage an absolutely massive diversity of ideas. That's because an idea on its own is just an idea, but shared ideas are different. They accelerate innovation through the faster discovery of opportunities. And that really is what teamwork is all about. But it is difficult. It is extremely difficult to form an effective team. It is difficult to get everybody thinking in ways that, truly echoes real diverse thinking, because we all sort of fall into a cookie cutter pattern of thinking the same thing and thinking in the same way. And that's where there are specialists in diversity of teamwork thinking. And that led me to my good friend, Tom Morley. Tom was a drummer for the 80s band Scritti Politti. He has worked with David Bowie previously on a couple of projects. And over a period of time, he has evolved to become a master in the issue of teamwork. And obviously, some of that is going to come from his background in the music industry and as a rock musician, because you need an unparalleled focus on teamwork to be able to pull off some of the magic that you can do in a stage performance. But I think what Tom really brings to the world and to the teamwork perspective is, has structure put your imagination into a straitjacket? What Tom is doing is he's leading organizations into a form of thinking which lets everybody be a troublemaker, lets everybody think a little bit differently, lets them pursue the diversity of ideas. And this quote says it all. Be authentic with your team, communicate to them, because they've chosen a pathway of notorious trouble. They've got to be notorious troubleshooters with everything they do. And if you can get them on the right path, they can accomplish something magical. Now, Tom is a really fascinating guy. When you voyage to his website, you're going to discover situations where he would go into corporate events and he would be leading, the event into these collaborative exercises, using drum exercises in order to develop very unique teamwork capabilities. When you explore the concept by which his mind works, one of the most fascinating videos has to do where he is leading through the process of the drum as an innovation metaphor. And he leads you into a world in which he's talking about how the Energizer Bunny and the Energizer Drummer Bunny is a true inspiration for innovative thinking. I mean, it's just a magical frame of mind. And like everyone else, COVID-19 hits. Tom has had to virtualize. He's had to align himself to providing and sharing his unique perspective on teamwork and innovation from the confines of a virtual world. His insight is powerful. His insight is rich. There's a really good situation which Hertz brought him in. They were focused on what can we do to develop an effective team. And through his efforts, he managed to get them to break down the barriers in terms of what they could accomplish thinking as individuals and what they could really accomplish by working effectively as a team. What is happening here is two perspectives. How can we reinvent the collaborative capability of an organization through effective teamwork? But not just that. How are individuals like Tom Morley reinventing themselves? And what can we learn from that reinvention as we go through this unique era with COVID-19 and the global pandemic? And the best way to answer that is to talk to Tom himself. And I've reached out to him in his virtual broadcast studio to talk a little bit about his world, what he does, what he has learned, and what he brings to corporate organizations. So Tom, welcome. Thank you for coming in on the inaugural Reinvention show. You're an optimism guy, optimistic guy. What's the basis for all your optimism with your reinvention in your future?
Well, my optimism comes from, someone said I was a magician, but the magic I bring out is not to do with me waving a wand. It's to do with the magic in people, which you could say is discretionary effort if you want to use business terms. It's always there and it's always ready to come out. So it doesn't matter what's going on, if it's a pandemic or we're all just in love with each other.
And I'm talking to people about reinvention, and I mean, you've obviously reinvented. So you went from being the drummer for the '80s band Scritti Politti and doing session work for David Bowie and others, and then you became you call yourself rock star activator, but you're going into corporate groups pre-COVID with these fascinating team building things involving drummer exercises. What led you into that type of very different type of reinvention?
I learned we were at a Scritti gig in Berlin, and all the lights went out. There's a power cut. I just carried on drumming, and the audience, rather than standing there watching, started to go yo 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 to each other and to us. And I thought, do you know what? It's ready. It's already in there. The audience don't really want to just be spectators. They want to join in. So I took that into conferences.
And what are you bringing them? Like, so I'm on stage, I'm talking to them about the future and trends and what comes next, and then you come on next, and we're going to have a team building exercise. What are you giving them as a team? What are you providing them?
Well, I could talk to them about Belbin. I could talk to them about Myers-Briggs. All they want to talk to me about is being a rock star. What was it like on the road? They have these, I have to say, their idea of the life I lived was much more exciting than the life I did live. But it doesn't matter. They all want to be, Andy Warhol said everyone's going to be famous for 15 minutes. I deliver those 15 minutes. They play drums, they get up, they dance. I think in answer to your question, how do I get away with it? They know it's only going to be for half an hour or something, then they can get to the bar. So if I said we're going to do this for 3 days, I'd have a revolution on my hands.
So COVID hits. You've built a comfortable life like me, traveling the world, speaking to corporate gigs, and helping people, develop new forms of teamwork. COVID hits. What happened in the first couple of days, and how did you maintain your sense of optimism?
Well, at first I thought everything's gone, because I brought people together with rhythm. We have a latency issue. I put together people with vocal harmony. Everyone's on mute. So I thought all my tools are gone. However, the outcomes that people wanted, bonding, getting out of their comfort zones, taking risks, they were still, the confidence that comes from taking risks as a group, those outcomes were still there. I just had to find a way to supply them, which I did.
So you went to Zoom right away, like everybody else, and you created a studio in the background where you're doing the type of thing that we see on the screen here.
Yeah.
How quickly were you doing your sort of first online gig in terms of let's call it, for lack of a better word, Zoom-based team building?
Yeah, within a week, I was up and running because I figured out, I don't know how I figured this out, I think it's by chance, that if I played people a song, didn't matter if they were hearing it at different times, didn't matter if they looked like they're out of time on the screen. I just play them a song, share my sound, share my computer sound, and they would dance and play to that song in their home, and they would think they're in time with me. There's something strange that goes on. If we're all out of time together at 130 beats per minute, it looks like we're in time.
So you didn't let the technology hold you back, but what happens? Like, I'm fascinated by when I watch this video, and here we've got people in their living rooms and in their home offices, and all of a sudden they've been on a corporate call talking about serious stuff, and now they're dancing around and they're banging pots and pans and spoons. And how quickly do you get them, getting involved in this, fascinating new form of Zoom-based team building?
Well, immediately, because you imagine on a normal working day, they're driving to work, they're climbing stairs, they're coming into the office. None of that goes on Zoom. They just sit down most of the day. So if I say, okay, everybody, stand up, they're ready, and I say, right, get 2 wooden spoons, go like this. They're ready. So I'll tell you, I've got the easiest job in the world. People would say it was difficult, but it's really easy.
So what, what's been the reaction of people as they discover you? Is business good, or is it picking up? Are you busy? What's the process happening for you?
Well, I think the need for those things, for connection, for team bonding, that's doubled. I have to say my income has trebled because I can do 4 gigs in a day rather than I don't have to fly to Paris or anywhere. I can just bang, bang, bang. And they get their outcome. They're really happy. So word's getting around. I mean, again, it's purely by chance. I could have sat down and wrote a book for 9 months, but I thought I'll give it a go.
So tell me about this situation. This is a video on your website that involves the Energizer Bunny and what you've learned from the Energizer Bunny. Lead me through the thought process of being a drummer with a rock band into being a corporate team builder, who is focused on how do we develop effective teams, and the role that the Energizer Bunny plays in doing this. I'm just waiting for this to come up in the video because it's here he is here. It's a fantastic little clip. Like what's the thought process here, and what are you explaining to folks that they can learn from the Energizer Bunny?
So you'll see my hands are going like that, right? The Energizer Bunny has completely regular rhythm, right? So the Energizer's left paw is as strong as the right paw. We live our lives doing everything right-handed. So we can read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits. We can read about all these millionaires, what they do. If we would only use the other hand and develop that side of us, it's a metaphor. We only use half of our brain, and so the Energizer Bunny can go on because one hand doesn't get tired, doesn't only use the right hand, doesn't only use the left hand. It's learned to do both. And then when you do that, that means you can move around. You can have this hand in the air and you can still be playing with that hand or that hand in the air. So it's a metaphor for using your whole self.
You're teaching them a little bit of their creative self. You're teaching them a little bit of what you need to do to think a little bit differently. You're teaching them a little to, that quote, that awful word, step out of your comfort zone. And you're doing that with the Energizer Bunny by, look, this thing he's using 2, you're only using 1 hand traditionally.
Yeah, it's that simple. If I ever go on a road show with a group, a company going around different depots, I get them in the evening. I say, we're all drinking, everyone's drinking. I say, use the other hand. This isn't just a team building thing in the team building section of the day. Let's open doors with the other hand and let's clean our teeth with the other hand. And it becomes this whole kind of, let's expand all the time project, which the thing is, that's what artists do. Artists get out of bed and go, how can I step out of my comfort zone today?
Now, I'm playing again this clip of you in the studio. Tell me about your studio. You've got this wall of African drums behind you. You've got some gear there. How quickly did it take you to create this magical setup that you're taking to the world?
Took me a day. I unloaded the van outside and just built this wall. Do you know what? I don't even know why I did it. I just thought, I don't want to use green screen. I've got these drums. Let's just use them as a backdrop. So I just set them up, and I did get a green screen, but people preferred the drums, so I just stuck with that.
And that's part of the process. So you brought me in as a corporate client into the Zoom call, and this is Tom Morley, and you've got this very eclectic look, and so you're telling people to run to their kitchen to grab some pots and pans and wooden spoons, and you're going to lead them through some sort of exercise.
Yeah, and the great thing is, if I was to send them an email, so bring 2 wooden spoons to the conference, they'd go, I never read the email. Because everyone's at home, I just say, go and grab something, and they can't refuse, So, and there's always something there. It's quite exciting for them to collect stuff. Or I say, get a pair of shades, get your favorite shades or a hat. And they're excited about it. They don't go, oh, no.
Because they've been in Zoom calls all day long. I mean, they're bored out of their mind. They've been, sitting down. This gives them permission to stand up. And I notice you talk about permission a lot. That seems to be a key phrase that you talk about in terms of what you do. Yeah,
I think because there's a theory that we were born with a wild twin, and the sensible twin got all the praise. Sensible twin helped with the washing out. Sensible twin did their homework on time. So the wild twin just went off and had their own adventures. The wild twin is ready to come back and energize us and inspire us as long as we start behaving a bit like it. We can't just send the wild twin an email. We have to start behaving so it looks attractive to come and join us. Then we become these 2 wild people dancing together.
Yeah, I got a little bit of wild back in my history, but
Yeah, yeah.
really we're sort of preaching the same thing. I mean, I get on stage and I talk about the innovation killers, the excuses we make that you can't do that because we've always done it this way. It's a dumb idea. It won't work. The boss won't go for it.
Yeah,
We come up with all these excuses, and then you're emphasizing that in terms of the message that you got to try and do things differently. You got to be a little bit creative. You got to use both hands. Challenge
yeah.
yourself. Don't get caught in that rut. You and I need to get on a virtual stage together somewhere,
So.
and do a gig that we're bringing our stuff together to the world.
Something you just said reminded me of something. I've recently met up with someone on LinkedIn who talks about the inner ally. And we all know about the inner critic. That's the monkey mind, or that exactly like you say, oh, I'd look stupid. The whole thing about the permission is the inner ally will give you permission, but we have to kind of talk down the inner critic first. So that's what in a way, I trick the inner critic by not saying I'm going to explain why this is good for you to hit these wooden spoons together. I'm saying, get some wooden spoons. Right, here's a track. Play along. So I trick it.
You're bringing them real methods of thinking about how to challenge themselves in creativity. You're not just telling them to the kitchen to run and grab some pots and pans. There's a process behind the insight that you're bringing. Tell me about the Hertz situation. I referenced the video at the start here where Hertz brought you into a global meeting and you sat next to the CEO, and he was sort of mystified why you were there, but then he discovered something about the unique insight you were bringing to the organization.
Yeah, I'd recently come back from Africa and I'd learned about the concept of Ubuntu. Now, most people know Ubuntu is an operating system, but actually the reason it's called that operating system, because it's about bringing people together. People come together in a common cause. So Ubuntu really means I am because we are. And I explained this to him, and rather than just be this kind of entertaining team guy who was going to start the conference, he went on stage and said, okay, turn the PowerPoint off. I'm going to tell you all about Ubuntu. It means I am because we are. We're going to do everything completely different. I want you to listen to Tom. He's an expert. And then I just kind of pretty much took over the conference. And he said, will you come on our road show? And I said, yeah, sure. And I turned up thinking we were going to get on a bus. It was Hertz, had a private plane. We met. So I flew around Europe, continuing to talk about Ubuntu with all these different groups. And the great thing was, before our story went before us. So we'd start in Paris, and then he'd say, oh, we're going to Germany. They might be a bit kind of restrained, but they'd heard about Paris. So they wanted to show off. So when we arrived, they were already clapping and drumming down the corridor as we went into the conference.
But the key message there is I am because we are. What you're really getting across is I can do something on my own, but it's much more powerful if we are doing it as a team. And it's sort of that quote that I use on stage. If you have an idea and I have an idea, that's two ideas. But if we combine those ideas, we have a movement. It's the same type of thinking. It's the power of collaboration and teamwork and bringing people together in common cause.
Yeah, and I think whatever it does for the bottom line, there's something about being generous that creates energy. So if you create a culture of generosity of spirit, which Ubuntu is, then you actually look forward to going to work. You look forward to sharing ideas, thinking, oh, I wasn't invented here, I'm going to do my own thing. You just, come on, let's do it together. So it's a culture change.
It's a very, very unique teamwork voyage, and it's absolutely fascinating to watch. Tell me this, the idea of reinvention. Part of what I'm doing here is trying to provide some inspiration to people who are faced with a complex future, and they know they need to do things differently, and they're not quite sure where to start. What would you advise them? How do you reinvent? If you're looking at a scary future, what do you do? What's been your mindset to help you do that? Because you've now done this several times along the way.
Yeah, whatever job is being taken away from you by AI or changing the economy or whatever, look at the outcomes that people employ you for. So like I said, mine are team bonding, connection, taking risks, the confidence that comes from taking risks. Look at those outcomes, think, how can I deliver them now? And that is what I did. I didn't think how can I drum online with this latency issue? Nobody's going to sort the latency issue for a long time. Just deliver the outcomes.
Just deliver the outcomes. And that's how you manage to get yourself into a mindset to reinvent, by focusing on what you could accomplish with what you could achieve.
Yeah, it's very simple. Don't rely on your digital, whatever skills you have. Don't think, oh no, I've been put out of business because those skills have been taken by a machine. I was put out of business by drum machines years ago. This drum machine, back in the 80s. There you go, CR78.
Yeah.
Drummers, drummers for a while were the only people who could program them. Then they made them so easy, anybody could program them. So you'd see an advert, Groove wanted, drummers need not apply, because they had one of these, So what do?
You reinvent. That's what it's all about. If I've learned anything by talking about the future, we know that tomorrow is going to be different, and the only way to get there is to align ourselves to that new reality by reinventing what they do. Last but not least, you've got a charity in Africa geared towards young African children. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. When I was in Africa, I met a Kenyan guy. I was at a conference called Way of the Warrior, and I was playing my drum, and he was dancing, but he was Maasai, so he couldn't dance with the crowd. He was dancing behind the screen, and he said, "It's how the Maasai jump." We kept seeing him behind the screen. He's a very tall guy. He said, I'd kind of activated his spirit. So that whole thing about the rock star activator came from that. And then I saw him by accident. I was scrolling Facebook and someone said, oh, you want to look at this orphanage? There he was. He was one of the people. He didn't tell me in Africa. He was one of the people who ran the orphanage. So I started running parties here, and we sent them money. All the money I earned from the parties, I sent them. They built a water pump, a water tower, started building the garden at Christmas. They all bought mattresses, for not just for the orphanage, but people in the whole area. I mean, I can never go there because I'm a saint.
Yeah. So this is fantastic. So the key thing: teamwork. I am because we are. Solo, we aren't much. Together, we can provide something powerful. Tom, this has been an absolute pleasure. And, look, like I said, you and I have to get together on a virtual gig somewhere. I'll talk about the future, why we need to align a world in which the future belongs to those who are fast. And then you're going to come in and tell them in a very unique way to get up out of their Zoom seats and how they can develop the unique spirit as a team to get there.
Yeah. Because the future is full of people who will always want to connect, and so the audience is always there. The need will always be there. It's just for people like you and me to make it attractive, which you have done with all your backgrounds and all your studio and stuff, So it's a no-brainer. We've got to work together.
Okay, I'm going to close it out. I'm going to play for the crowd the Energizer video. So, thank you for joining me on the, this is the very first show I'm doing around the theme of reinvention. Fascinating concept.
Pleasure. Love from London. I've learned rhythms in North Africa, West Africa, South Africa, East Africa, but I've learned the most from the Duracell Bunny. Why? Because the Duracell Bunny has a lot of discipline and plays evenly with both left and right paws like this. Which on its own is a bit boring, but look, if you get the deluxe model with the swivel hips, this is what you get. So in any activity, be it playing sport, surfing, you need to get that discipline first before you can surrender. So let me show you, because I've developed a bit of discipline under the Bunny's guidance, what you can do next. So you can go through your life like this, just using the strong hand. But I would suggest you bring in the other hand. because you'll have a groovier life.